Continuing our reading in Hellbent for Election by Phyllis Speshock, Chapter 25. The bell had not yet rung when we came onto the grounds. Like spokes of a wheel, the sidewalks came together at the main entrance, and each spoke was an aisle filled with laughing, chattering youngsters. "How old is she?" asked Alexis. 12, said I, brimful of anticipation. She's in the 6th grade. A good little student, too. Her hair is dark like Della's, and her eyes are bright blue. She should come from the West, I think. Della and Nan bought a house in the newer addition. She has lots of friends. Della dresses her in all the latest fashions and permits her to entertain as often as she likes. But look, there she is. See her? See her? See her, Alexis? The little girl with the plaid skirt and the blue sweater? I left Alexis' side and went swiftly across the grounds and out past the road to the path beyond. "Vicey," I said, choked with happiness. "Vicey, darling, it's Uncle Wilful." But Alexis was immediately beside me. "She can neither see you nor hear you, Hellbent. Even your shadow is too insignificant for her to notice." "But is there no way?" "None whatsoever. You know that." We followed along beside her for several steps, and then I said, "Alexis, the air is very warm, isn't it? School will be out very soon. They should be having final exams right now. Why does she quake like that? She has a wool sweater on. Surely she can't be cold." But even as I spoke, she crossed her arms and hugged her small body. She looked as if her very teeth were chattering. Alexis watched it too, and his face was overflowing with compassion, but he said nothing. "Alexis," I pleaded, "can't you touch her? Can't you warm her, reassure her? She looks so little and sick. Can't you?" "No, Hellbent. I am assigned to you." "But that doesn't even make sense. Why isn't one of you assigned to her?" He turned and looked at me with mild surprise. "Why should one of us be? Did you not say she was 12 and quite bright? Should she not have heard of him then? But you yourself said that she would go to hell, and that was what you wanted." "I see," I said disgustedly. "You are a closed group, is that it? Pretty exclusive, huh? Then why do you trouble with me?" His eyes widened and his shining brows drew up. "I won't," he said, "after 3 o'clock this afternoon. But until then, you are still my charge. But let us get off this nonsense and get back to the child. You say she is popular? Where then are her friends? Surely after such an experience as you're passing, she should have a little friends to comfort her." I noticed for the first time how terribly alone she seemed. Other children were clustered in small talkative groups, but Vicey went by herself. "Do none of them live near her?" Alexis asked. "Do they live in some other section of the town?" "Why, no. There are lots of children in her neighborhood. She usually walks with 5 or 6. They meet her at They meet at her house, as a matter of fact." "Well," said Alexis, "perhaps she went on without them this morning." She wouldn't do that. She's a very loyal little thing, also very gregarious." But then we crossed the street and came upon the grounds again. There, grouped ahead of us, was her little mob. "There they are," I said. "They must have gone on without her." Vicey saw them too, and she began to shiver all the more. They stood blocking the sidewalk, staring at her, so that she had to go around them. When she did, they tittered and giggled. "Sorry we can't play with you anymore," one little snip said with sing-song sarcasm. "But my folks feel that enough is enough." "It's one thing," another chimed in using the same tone, "to be what you are," and here they all paused to snicker appreciatively, "but quite another to be a maniac." "Who knows what you might do?" a third one suggested. with a father who goes berserk and commits. Vicey started to run. Casting her glance from side to side, she ran from them as if looking for a hiding place, like a small frightened animal. Other youngsters turned and stared after her. I let out a hoarse cry and pursued her myself. Alexis was right beside me. She came breathless and frantic to the main entrance, but the teacher on guard at the door looked at her strangely and said, "Sorry, you have to stay outside until the bell rings." The teacher continued to stare, her eyes curious and penetrating. Vicey backed away and cowered against the outside wall. She looked like the embodiment of innocence facing a firing squad. "Alexis," I croaked, "do something." "Do something, Hellbent? Or undo something?" "Help her, comfort her." "I told you, I am assigned to you." "Are you going to stand there and argue over a few hair-splitting details? She isn't that old. That she no longer warrants a guardian angel? Have you no heart? Are you all just glitter and obedience? How can you let this happen to her?" But he looked at my torment without flinching. "The question is," he said finally, "how could you?" "I don't know what you're talking about," I snarled. "I didn't let this happen to her. I didn't tell those snobbish parents to—" "But you gave them just cause," he reminded. "Did you think they would praise you for it? Did other humans praise your parents for what they did to you? Did they befriend you and Della for what your parents were? Sins always find you out, Hellbent." Another patch of youngsters walked past Vicey, whispering and pointing. She turned her face away toward the red bricks. "This is no time for sermons," I choked. "Can't you see she's cringing with shame? Don't you think I know what that feels like?" "Apparently you forgot. Or you would not have brought this upon her." "I didn't bring it on her. That is, I didn't mean—" But now her little mob had made its way up to the door beside her. One of them, clad in pink, stepped a pace away from the others and said haltingly, "Vicey, it wasn't my idea for us not to be friends anymore. It's just that my folks, and all their friends too, their folks, it's just that, well, you know, all the stuff in the newspapers, and he did confess to doing it on purpose, and if that sort of thing runs in the family, and everyone knows you're his daughter." Suddenly, Vicey screamed. She doubled her fists at her sides and shrilled, "Leave me alone!" The girls backed away, and the teacher came all the way outside and took Vicey by the arm and said, "Now you see here, we don't stand for shenanigans of this sort around here. You may be notorious to the rest of the country, but in this place, you'll behave normally and decently, or the principal will hear about it. Is that clear?" She released the child with a jerk and stalked back to her post. Vicey stood helplessly against the building, turning her face one way and then another, tears sliding down her cheeks. "Why didn't she just go home?" I rasped. "What would be the good of that, Hellbent? She is required by state law to attend school." "But not yet. "Will time make the facts go away? Apparently the facts surrounding her birth did not fade with time." "Will you stop coughing up the past to me? Will you stop acting so sanctimonious? You talk as if I deliberately plotted to hurt this child. It wasn't my fault at all. I had it all worked out to the last detail. It was his fault. He was the one who interfered. If he had just let me die, if he hadn't caused me to burble all those hours." A batch of young boys walked past Vicey. Well, one of them quipped smartly, "if it isn't the little girl with the little curl right in the middle of her uncle's head." The others guffawed and slapped him on the back, and they went on down the walk, gossiping about the condition of the car and my body. Vicey cowered with humiliation, and an agony beyond mere tears of remorse twisted and contorted me. "All right," I moaned. "It was my fault. I would never have done it if I had known it would end like this. Help her, Alexis. Please help her." I have told you, Hellbent, I cannot. As you have said, she is beyond being a little child. She is old enough to think and reason. She must make her own decisions about him. I cannot help it if she has not been properly instructed. That was your commission, and you failed. Do you mean she will go to hell? But you wanted her to. But that is not yet, Alexis. Not here on Earth, not like this. But you brought it upon her, Hellbent. If you had left things as they were, if you had stayed here with her, none of this would have happened. Your violent action only gave vent to undercurrent whispers that would otherwise never have erupted. I can't undo it. Of course not. It's too late for that. But she needs a comforter. Of course she does, and he has sent one. But how can I? Don't you know? But Della and Nan. We are talking about Vicey, just about Vicey. Which do you believe is worse? This life without him or eternity with believers? Somehow I was sobbing, dry, hard sobs. What have I done? What have I done? I only thought of myself. Though I had no body, I had the sensation that Alexis' hand was on my head. There, he said. Let's go on, but first look up, Hellbent. The school bell is about to ring. I looked up toward Vicey, and I saw a little girl dressing all in white come close to her, and they seemed to be talking. I moved away quickly to hear them. It's all right, the little girl in white was saying, and now she put an arm around Vicey's shoulders. It doesn't make any difference what they say. You mustn't pay any attention to them. They don't know any better. We must remember to pray for them. I will be your friend, and I will tell you about my best friend, my very best friend. Once you know him, it won't hurt so bad. You see, a long time ago in Bethlehem. And suddenly the bell rang, and the other children ran helter-skelter, pushing and shoving to get to the door. But Vicey and her new little friend disappeared serenely inside the building, talking and nodding with their arms about each other, as if they were entirely alone. I stared after them until the grounds became quiet and deserted. Then I turned to Alexis and said, What does it mean? Who was that child? Was she? Alexis smiled. No, she was not one of us. Your eyes must have been blurred. Though she has one of us to guard her. Her name is Dulcie. She is your cousin Hasty's niece by marriage. She's one of them? Alexis wagged his head. You must remember, Hellbent, that your parents' relatives did attend your funeral on very short notice. So did many of the members of the various churches you attended, though you had no knowledge of their presence. What is that supposed to prove? That blood is thicker than water? No, that spirit is thicker than blood. You see, for all the squabbles, the foundational unity is astounding. In fact, miraculous. Alexis, you've got me at one very weak moment and caused me somehow to transmit an unuttered prayer to him for Vicey, but don't get overconfident and think you can chicane me into... I would not think of such a thing, Hellbent. If hell is what you want, I will not be the one to stand in the way. However, I am glad that little Vicey... Alexis, I interrupted, if the other child did have one of you guarding her, why couldn't I see him? Your eyes are not open to the others, only to me. We were walking away from the school grounds now, back to the main walk and beneath a canopy of maples. Alexis, I said again, will she be all right now? Will she really be all right? I mean, the other little girl, Dulcie, will she tell her about him? It doesn't seem fitting for a child to go to hell. Would it really have, would he, well, would you really have permitted that? Would he? It is written, Hellbent, the son shall not bear the iniquity of the father. And he would say no more. And that's the end of chapter 25.